Jonathan, we still hear on a regular basis about FDA raids, and raw milk is something that comes up an awful lot. Where or why is there a concern there? Why can't consumers make their own choices on which products they want to purchase and consume?
Good question. You know, raw milk is but one of dozens of substances that we consume that are susceptible to being infected with pathogenic bacteria. There's steak tartare, which is raw steak. There's oysters, raw oysters, which people consume. There's sushi. There are eggs. There's